From the gridiron to the diamond, this is more than X's and O's. This is your best Florida sports podcast with CBS 12 News sports director John Evenson and producer extraordinaire Sam Sullivan.
Welcome to episode 3.
What was that? That was fire coming at you. New intro.
There's nothing better than that.
Producer extraordinaire. Did we hire Katy Terry? Katy Perry? Is that her name? Was that her singing in that?
No.
No.
It was her doppelganger, Katy Carey.
There you go.
There you
That's
go.
Who she comes cheaper.
So we started from down here. We started with nothing, and now we've just climbed.
I say we have a new intro
Every week?
Yeah.
Yep, we're gonna switch it up every week.
Next week, Pitbull.
Right.
He's gonna write something up for us, and we'll throw it in.
Let's
there.
not get too carried away from the theme of this podcast, which is what is going on with the Miami Dolphins.
They looked just utterly unprepared in Seattle. Let's just like, this does seem like week 11 though, doesn't it? Like week 11 or 12. Like we keep going through all the horrible things. I mean, let's not make light of all of it because, this could just be a bad football team, us having a bad experience, being 1-2, and the offense looking terrible. But then there's all these real life horrible things that have happened to this team. I mean, the Tyreek Hill thing 3 hours before the week 1 kickoff. And then, of course, game 2 against Buffalo, Tua Tagovailoa, third diagnosed NFL concussion. It just looked horrifying to see that on the field. He'll be back as soon as week 8, or at least at the earliest week 8.
Right.
And then before week 3 game in Seattle, one of the great Dolphins of all time, Mercury Morris. The word comes down that he passed away. Great running back from that 1972 undefeated team. So proud. No one was more proud of that perfect team than Mercury Morris. And just to hear that he had passed away, that was a shock to a lot of people. But then the not so important stuff on the field, that stuff is upsetting at day's end because they're not playing like the football team that these fans had, we had promised to us.
Yeah, and then the tragedy didn't end before the game. It was during the game where we saw in that third quarter Skylar Thompson take that big hit, another quarterback down with a big injury.
I forgot about that. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's how many more things. And before he hurt his rib, I mean, could he have looked less prepared for that moment? I mean, I love the guy. It's not all on him, of course. The O-line was not making it very easy.
He's sacked 5 times.
You know what that game looked like to me? The offense from a Dolphins standpoint, it looked like over the holidays when my son, who plays PS5 all the time, is like, "Hey, Dad, you want to play, what's the NFL game called on PS5?
Madden.
Want to play Madden? Yeah, how could I forget? You want to play Madden? And I get the joystick. Do you still call it a joystick?
I got the controller now.
Controller, so I call it a joystick, like in the Pac-Man days. But anyway, and the Dolphins offense looked like me trying to go up against this 15-year-old Madden guru who plays this stuff with his friends all the time. His offense looks like that Bills game on Monday night, where the first quarter where they scored 700 touchdowns, and my offense looks like the way the Dolphins look like on Sunday. They couldn't do anything. 3 points.
Flat. Very flat.
What did you think of the O-line? Your eyes bursted out of your head when I mentioned the O-line.
I mean, how do you expect Skylar to do anything if the offensive line's not going to show up? I mean, he only had 107 passing yards. When Tim Boyle came in, he had 79, only 65 rushing yards. And we talked about that running back room before the season. Of course, week 1, we've talked about it. I mean, man, that's a huge part of this team is how deep that running back room is. And they're not able to do anything, really.
And, of course, bad takes exposed. A lot of people talking about GM Chris Greer, who in his, I think it was during training camp, he took to the podium. And the first question was asked about the O-line, and he snickered and said, Mike McDaniel and I, we have a good chuckle when we talk about how the media is not thinking that this O-line is good enough. And it was almost a little bit patronizing, but now you hear back that soundbite, and who was right? Who was right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like everybody else was right.
Yeah.
It's just not, it hasn't been working out, and that might play into Tua not being in there and changing up the pass protection or stuff like that, but regardless, I mean, it just did not look good.
Best offense in the NFL, at least one of them last year, and so far worst in the NFL. They haven't held a lead in regulation time. They just won on a field goal there.
That's
so
it.
Here's Alec Ingold talking about that very phenomenon. How, you know, coming from the perspective of there's nowhere to go but up, Alec.
If you say you're underperforming, right, that means that there's a high expectation. There's a high potential. There's a high level of talent. And when your execution over a short period of time is below that, I think the only way that you can raise that execution, the only time you can raise to meet that potential, the only time you can raise the execution to reach the talent is through your process, through the standard, through the daily habits. Like, I don't think you can change. If we've built a process since April for the last 2 years, and we're starting off slow for the first time since I've been here, I don't know if you can change that process, overcompensate, because you aren't seeing the results.
We know we're better than what we're putting out there. But I think it's good for us, you know. I look at the last 2 seasons or since Mike been here, and then going to the first 3 weeks, we had a whole bunch of hype and all this crazy stuff with all this media attention, and we get to see what our team made of early. You know, it's only the 3rd week, and our back is up against the wall, so we're going to see what we made of pretty early, see what the team got.
So what a predicament they're in now. 3rd and or 4th string quarterback. They could start. And by the way, we are taping this on Wednesday night. So those of you who are in the future, you may already know what Mike McDaniel has announced here. But it could be Snoop Huntley. It could be Tim Boyle. Boyle got to play in that game. He moved the ball a little bit, but it was like late in the game and different defenses and stuff. But Skylar Thompson, he could get another chance, not ruling it out at this point. At least he wasn't on Tuesday. Mike McDaniel was not. But was it short-sighted? That was another thing the media was really pouring on the questions, almost foreseeing this about, you know, the backup quarterback competition was not all that impressive in the preseason between Skylar Thompson and Mike White. And then the guy with the most experience, they send off, and Buffalo picks him up in Mike White. And Skylar Thompson just seemed to be Mike McDaniel's guy, okay? But, I mean, Tua Tagovailoa played an entire season injury-free last year. It was kind of crazy to think that could happen again, especially with his history.
Right.
But the other side of that is Skylar didn't get to play at all last year either. So Skylar didn't play any regular season game last year. And then suddenly he's thrown into this. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, maybe not this bad, but was that short-sighted of the Dolphins, do you think, Sam? Not going deep on looking at least for another backup?
I mean, I think it was a missed opportunity. We saw it in week 3, a couple of backups having huge games.
Yes.
Malik Willis, Andy Dalton. You know, those are, if you think about their starters, Jordan Love and Deshaun Watson, they both have big contracts. Regardless of your quarterback having a big contract, you need a solid backup. And they missed out on that in free agency. You had Jameis Winston. You could have brought back Ryan Tannehill. I mean, Marcus Mariota. There was options out there.
That middle one, I don't know how many Dolphin fans would accept that. That's almost like
but would
going
you accept
back in
that
time.
over what we have right now?
Maybe they would.
It's
if
a
they could see
debate
into
for
the
our
future.
audience out there. That's a big debate.
Yeah. Well, Dave Furones, awesome guy. He's a writer for the Sun Sentinel. He was in Seattle. And he told me, he admits that 12th man is the real deal. I mean, the Dolphins should not have been that shocked or rattled by how loud and crazy it was there, which they definitely looked like they were. But Dave Furones was there, and I had a chance to talk to him about what the heck is going on here heading into week 4. We are joined now by David Furones, Sun Sentinel Dolphins writer. And what week does this feel like for you, David? I was talking to the guys. It kind of seems like it's like week 11 or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's certainly been enough drama surrounding the Dolphins to cover up 10 weeks here. And we're only through week 3.
You are, in this question I'm about to ask you, you are Mike McDaniel, okay? Put yourself in his skin. who are you starting? And this is in a world where Skylar Thompson is totally, well, not totally healthy, but healthy enough to start. Who do you start at quarterback on Monday?
You know, my first inclination was that you're trusting Skylar Thompson. You give him at least 2 starts, because I felt initially it wouldn't be fair to judge him off of the road game in Seattle. That's such a tough environment to play. The 12th man over there. I was in that building, John, at Lumen Field in Seattle. It gets loud. It's real, that 12th man over there. But after watching that game, the way the offense struggled, the way he lacked pocket presence behind this offensive line, which is going to give up pressures, and it's going to allow pass rushers to get past them, and he needs to get the ball out quick the way Tua Tagovailoa normally does. Well, he didn't do that on Sunday, and after watching it, I just feel like even if he's healthy, and by the way, that is what got him hurt, was that pocket presence, not getting the ball out on time, taking as many hits as he did. That eventually is what really got him hurt with the what was first called the chest injury and now the ribs injury. So I'm inclined to go with Tyler Huntley now. South Florida product. He was inactive, although healthy, on Sunday in Seattle, because he only had 5 days with the team when he was signed the Tuesday before the Sunday game in Seattle. And he was only available as the emergency third quarterback, but I feel like he's done this before. He's come in for Lamar Jackson with Baltimore and been a viable backup option. So I feel like after seeing what Skylar Thompson was after 3 years now in this system, and you still saw some of the same struggles that you saw back his last start at Buffalo in that playoff loss. The communication with the play calls coming in and him getting the play call into the guys. It's a complex offense, so I know it's tough for someone like Tyler Huntley to come in brand new, but maybe you simplify things for him and let him just go to work with those dual threat abilities that he has, the speed on the outside with Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle, plus Devon Achane in the backfield. Now you add some speed at the quarterback position. It would really keep the opposing defense honest.
Remember when it might have even been you who asked Tagovailoa before he got injured about the O-line and whether or not he had faith in the O-line, and he said something like, I get that ball off fast, brother. You know what I mean? So basically saying, don't worry about them. I'm not worried about them. Maybe they're not that great. I'm not putting words into his mouth, but is that part of the problem we've seen? I mean, some of those sacks appeared to be maybe you could maybe fault Skylar on maybe 2 or 3 of them. But what's your view of the O-line so far? Because we'll remember Chris Greer, the GM, kind of said that he chuckled at the media for worrying about them. But that's bad takes exposed almost right now, right?
Yeah, if it wasn't a concern then, it should be a concern now. And I think Tua has always been there to be able to mask some of these deficiencies on the offensive line, or whenever they shuffled like they had to a lot last year. We know Teron Armstead has an injury history and often has to exit games like he did again this Sunday and the previous game against Buffalo. Kendall Lamb is a viable backup. The interior of the offensive line, these are all guys that, frankly, they lost out on the competition just the year before. And then you lose a really valuable asset in Robert Hunt to free agency, lucrative deal that he got with the Carolina Panthers. So then you have to replace the starter there, right guard, and then left guard Isaiah Wynn, who won this competition over these same guys, Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg. Well, now these guys have to start over him, along with Lester Cotton if someone goes down. And you bring in an Aaron Brewer at center to replace Connor Williams, who's now with Seattle. So, yes, it's a concern. And Skylar Thompson, he probably is a little bit more concerned about it than Tua Tagovailoa, because brother, he doesn't get the ball out as fast as Tua does. So, and he showed it on Sunday. So, if he is still starting coming into this next game against the Titans, he's going to have to get the ball out quick, be more decisive. Just trust what you see. I think that's what it comes down to. He's reading the defense and then just not trusting. Oh, it's there. He's a little bit tentative back there and hesitant. Just go out there and play your game and trust what you are seeing, what you are reading from the defense, and know that you have elite wide receivers in Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle.
How unthinkable would it be for Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle to have, I guess, what would seemingly be realistically their 3rd straight non-productive game here? Like what? It's almost, they were both given those big contract extensions in the offseason, and it's been really difficult for them to work them into anything over the past couple of weeks. What do you think is going on there?
It's certainly possible that they have another unproductive game. the Titans are a better pass defense than they are run defense. So that could be an opportunity for the Dolphins to focus on the run the way what many anticipated they would in Seattle, and then kind of went away from it. I know they've had some struggles finding the success in the outside zone, and have been running well in between the tackles, which is a bit surprising to some. But maybe defense is overplaying the outside zone that we know the Dolphins love to base their offense off of. So I would expect them to go to the run game, but still, you have what is possibly the greatest wide receiver duo in the NFL. And no matter who the quarterback is, you have these guys at your disposal. You should be able to get the ball to them. So, yeah, it's possible that they have another game where they don't put up too much. But I would think Mike McDaniel, Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator, whoever's that quarterback, they really have to focus in on, all right, let's make sure we get Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle their targets.
The defense definitely has to stop the run and a whole lot more. So I'm wondering what your opinion is of Anthony Weaver's defense so far over the first 3 games, because there's a lot to be desired, obviously, there as well.
Yeah, well, I think the defense has been solid, honestly. I mean, held it down against Jacksonville, second half shutout. So
at least kept them in games. They kept them in games for a couple of those, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at, okay, they fall down to an early deficit against Seattle, but then second and third quarters, shutting out Seattle, keeping the Dolphins in this game where fourth quarter, they're driving, they're at the 2-yard line, have to go for it on fourth down. They could score a touchdown there, and they are now within 1 possession. So defense kept them in that game. Honestly, against Buffalo, yeah, the run defense could have been better. James Cook went off against the Dolphins, scored 3 touchdowns. But it's not like Josh Allen really lit you up like he has in the past. So I would put not much of the faults of this on the defense. And really, it's Mike McDaniel's offense. He's got to correct this. He's been there 3 years. And right now, the Dolphins defense in Anthony Weaver's first year is ahead of the Miami offense.
We are going to stop right there because it's hard to find a positive point about the Dolphins, and you just hit it. So we'll end on a positive note. Thank you, David Furones, and read all your articles in the Sun Sentinel and take a deep dive. You're involved in the deep dive sometimes with Perk and Dave Hyde as well. So make sure you listen to that podcast. There you go. So Snoop, who do you think they should start?
I think it should be Snoop.
Yeah?
He's the biggest playmaker. He led the Ravens to the playoffs when Lamar got hurt. And he's a performer. And under the big lights, I think he can, lead this team somewhere.
And maybe, just maybe, and he brought up a good point there, if you simplify the offense a little bit and just let him do his thing and be mobile, and maybe Tyreek and Waddle get back into it, maybe this whole offensive guru thing for Mike McDaniel, maybe it's just a little bit too complex for what we're dealing with here. Like, you saw the Bills game on Monday night. Is that when it was?
Thursday.
It was Thursday. That was the Bills game? Was Thursday?
Yes.
Wasn't it? No, it was a Monday night game. It was this past Monday. The Monday night game. It was one of the Monday night games.
We're talking about the Bills game,
yes.
not against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, Josh Allen is just, again, keeping things as simple as possible and moving the ball down the field. I mean, it's a totally different team, but maybe that's if we lean closer to just keeping the offense a little more simple until Tua Tagovailoa comes back, because clearly you have a greater appreciation for Tua Tagovailoa now.
Right.
All those Tua haters, if they're still out there, to see just how elite a quarterback he is. He gets the ball off quick, accurate, and if they could get through this, man, this schedule coming up, it's I dare I say soft. I mean, because the Dolphins are on the verge of being 1-3, but if you got to win, you got to win now, right?
If they can play anywhere near their potential, you can consider it to be a lighter schedule. They have the Titans, of course, on Monday night. Then they go
0-3.
Then they go to New England to play the Patriots.
1-2 so far.
The Colts.
1-2.
And then the Cardinals.
And then in between that, there's a bye week. They definitely can't lose that week, so that's good.
That's a guaranteed win.
Yeah, 1-2.
It might feel like a loss if they lose the week before, but
that's the thing. I almost feel like the team, things have just gone so wrong, right? And what are the 5 stages of grieving? I feel like we're going through. Like we've
already sped to 5.
The first one is denial in some way, because when they won on the winning field goal, everyone's like, "See, look, this is great, even though they maybe should have poured on some more points.
Yeah, but even then, they didn't have the strongest offensive performance. And you go,
that's what I'm saying. Like denial, like we won.
I want to go back to Josh Allen's game that he had against the Jaguars, where he was able to just, like you said, move the ball down the field and perform well.
Mm-hmm.
You think about his situation, he's a star quarterback with not as many weapons. He lost Gabe Davis. He lost Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
You bring in Tyler Huntley or whatever quarterback you bring in, it's a much different situation. Playmakers all around them.
Yes. Yeah.
You would think it would make it easier for that quarterback to just say, all right, short plays, give it to you here, simple routes there and there, but it hasn't looked that way.
No. And then to continue the stages of, like, I'm not saying they're, dead in the water, but like maybe the second stage, what is it, anger? Is that what, do you know them? I don't know. Anger.
I don't know them.
So anger, the Bills game made us angry, because you don't lose that bad to your AFC East rival. And then the Seattle game.
Depressed,
yes. Let's not get to acceptance here. Let's not get to acceptance, because if you get to acceptance, the season is over. They gotta get themselves out of this thing. I don't know where I came up with that silly analogy, but I guess because check it out. After that soft schedule, you've then got Buffalo, Green Bay, Houston, Cleveland, the Rams, and the Jets twice, who suddenly Aaron Rodgers looked great the last game, and the 49ers. So, the Dolphins, I don't need to remind anybody, 3-12 versus teams that made the playoffs so far in the McDaniel era.
Wow.
That's not including the Seattle and Buffalo losses, because they haven't made the playoffs yet, so could be even worse. And then 10-1 versus non-playoff teams in 2023. They got to shake that, man. I mean, yeah, win the next 4, but don't stop there. I mean, you just got to beat the teams that you're gonna meet in the playoffs.
And an opportunity right in front of them is to beat an 0-3 Tennessee Titans. We saw it last year in December, another Monday Night Football game. They had an opportunity to beat a team that hadn't been playing so well, and Titans were able to score 15 points in 51 seconds.
You know what? If they had not melted down in that game, we may have not have had to experience that ridiculously ice bowl game in Kansas City where my nose almost froze off. Although I did get to see Taylor Swift twice.
Worth it?
I was frozen at the time. I don't know.
Maybe
I was hallucinating.
I heard she was pretty upset that she didn't get to talk to you one-on-one.
Well, yeah, they were trying to separate us, and it was awkward. I mean, we really wanted to have a chat, but yeah. And Travis came along, and she was fine.
I don't know who's going to come out to the Tennessee game in Miami. Maybe Morgan Wallen. I don't know. We'll see. But nonetheless, it's an opportunity for them to win. And I spoke to Jill Jelnick, who covers the Titans out in Nashville.
I love it when we hear the other side, because they've got a whole different perspective. And actually, I spoke to Calais, or we're going to hear from Calais Campbell a little bit later on about what he expects from the Titans. But yeah, I'm glad you.
And now we're going to hear from somebody who covers the Titans on a regular basis, what to expect from this game, but also some of the matchups that the Dolphins might be favored in.
All right, let's listen.
This prior game for the Titans against the Packers wasn't really that strong of a performance. What is the main thing that they are looking to adjust in the now before heading into the Dolphins game?
Yeah, before you even look at the head-to-head matchup, Coach Callahan always talks about we got to look inward first, and first and foremost, they got to clean up the turnovers. The Titans' turnover ratio through the first 3 games of the season is -7. And simply put, and he said it a couple times over the past 3 weeks, you can't win games if you continue to give points to the other team. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things about this Titans team is they have so much potential. They have a lot of talent. There was a lot of hype about this team going in to this season. A lot of guys on paper, that stand out, whether it's Calvin Ridley or L'Jarius Sneed on defense, and a lot of great playmakers, but we have yet to see this team really play a complete game. And it starts by playing a clean game and not turning the ball over and shooting yourselves in the foot. So obviously the Dolphins are a huge opponent, but I think the Titans' biggest problem right now is themselves, and those players in the locker room will tell you that.
Calvin Ridley against the Jets had a very big game despite them losing, but this past game, 3 targets, only had 1 reception for 9 yards. What is it going to take to be able to get him involved in the offense more? Is it a chemistry thing between him and Will Levis, or is it just that, he doesn't have enough time to, Will Levis doesn't have enough time to get Ridley the ball?
I think the question is how can Levis get more receivers involved? DeAndre Hopkins, for example, Tyler Boyd is the other top wide receiver for us. The trio of those guys, you take their names alone, and you take one of those guys, and you're on your fantasy team, and you're happy about that. I think the question is not so much just Calvin Ridley, even though he did have a great game against the Jets. I think it's how can Will Levis and also Coach Callahan, who's calling the offensive plays, get everyone involved in a way that makes it difficult for the defense to just single in on one person. DeAndre Hopkins suffered an injury in the preseason. It took him about 2 games to get back. It was DeAndre Hopkins who had the best game on this past Sunday against the Packers, not Calvin Ridley. It was Hopkins. And this is a team where I think you're not going to just find that one wide receiver is going to have the big game. It's going to be one of those 3, Boyd, Ridley, or Hopkins, that is going to have the big game and step up for the team. And it might be someone different every time. It might be Calvin Ridley this Monday against the Dolphins. But I think it's more about getting that offense involved, right? And we all know to help get the passing game going, you get the run game going first, balanced attack, all that good stuff. So I think the chemistry with Calvin Ridley is growing, and Levis and Ridley will be the first to tell you they still need work. And that just comes with time.
Talk about this matchup against the Dolphins, in the spotlight. They had this exact matchup last year, Monday Night Football in December, a comeback victory, as you know, a comeback victory for the Titans. Do you think that, of course, the team wasn't playing up to their standard at that point? Do you think that kind of helps them fuel the fire in a sense of, okay, we don't have as much to lose right now. We're not in such a pivotal point in the season. Does it kind of, loosen them up a little bit more? They're going into an away territory, and, do you think that helps them out?
I'd say it always helps when you're an underdog, but ironically, the Titans are actually favored now, I believe, in this game, just by 1.5 points, not much. And that has more to do with Miami than it does with the Titans. I think I actually asked Will Levis today about that game. The last time they faced the Dolphins, it happened to be on Monday Night Football. They scored 15 points in 51 seconds to come back and win it. And my question was, can you take away anything from that experience? Because these are 2 completely different teams than that time last year. And he said, yes, you can take away that experience of being coming from behind in the spotlight on Monday Night Football and rising to that occasion. And again, that's how they are looking at this game on Monday night. It's not so much we have to win or else the season's over. It's more of this is a great opportunity to turn things around. Let's focus on what we need to do to get to that full potential that we have not shown yet. And then once we do that, then we can start stacking some wins.
Move into matchups for this upcoming game. Of course, the Dolphins have 2 very dynamic receivers in Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but they've underperformed up to this point. What are some of the matchups in this game that you like or prefer from a Titans standpoint?
One of the matchups we talked about today at practice was L'Jarius Sneed, Titans cornerback L'Jarius Sneed and Tyreek Hill, obviously. And the 2 of them have faced off against each other, but way before, for several years before L'Jarius came over here. That's obviously a really good matchup. Sneed is he's a veteran, and he's obviously going up against Tyreek. He probably knows his tendencies and stuff like that. I think it's interesting because we don't know who's going to throw the ball to Tyreek Hill, right? So there's questions there. Does that change their passing game? Does that change what they're trying to do with Tyreek Hill? You have Jaylen Waddle too, who's, when you put all your effort on Tyreek Hill, that's when Jaylen Waddle has his best game. So it's hard in the sense that you can't just focus on one, right? You guys the Dolphins have great team speed. That's what Callahan said. They're unique because they have so much speed across all positions, your running back core included. So I think that's one matchup I'm interested in. I think the Titans run defense against the Miami Dolphins running backs, the running game, right? Because that was an issue against the Packers. The game plan and the approach should not change whoever runs out there in a Miami uniform on Monday.
Based on all those matchups,
Mm-hmm.
kind of looking ahead, of course, as I mentioned, they won in that close game last season. What is your score prediction?
Offenses for both these teams, they've underperformed, especially the last 2 weeks, right? If you exclude the Dolphins win, they've underperformed the last 2 games. So I think this is going to be one of those where low scoring. I'll go ahead and say something like, gosh, I hate score predictions. Something weird sometimes, and then whenever I try to pick like a logical score, it's always like something weird, like 20. Right? Yeah, somebody misses an extra point. I'll say that. I'll go ahead and just say like 21-20. I'm going to say pretty close game. But something's got to give in there. Maybe a special team something. We'll see.
Man, how much is the Dolphins O-line, or should they be salivating for this opportunity to make amends? My gosh.
It's a big opportunity. I mean, the Packers are able to run all over the Titans. We have dynamic running backs, and that'll help out whatever quarterback they decide to start, alleviate their responsibility. I think it's a huge opportunity for this Dolphins to take advantage at home, under the lights, prime time, to win a big game. Because this is a big game. I can't believe we're already saying that in week 4.
Yeah.
But this is a big game.
You cannot lose this game. You cannot, if you lose to an 0-3 Tennessee Titans team, but it's always those 0-3 teams that are the ones that give you problems. And the front seven on defense too, they have to stop the run here. It's been kind of a mixed bag. I think, what's the stat against Green Bay? I think they only ran like 30 yards or something like that. But they have the potential, right?
Yep.
They got Pollard.
They've got Pollard and Tajay Spears.
And Levis is pretty mobile too. Calais Campbell, he knows what the challenge is here.
I mean, they're one of the best running teams that we're going to face, which is something that we've been putting a big emphasis on the last couple of weeks. And we still haven't really had that complete game, from a front seven, stopping the run. And, the Titans are, that's what they do best. And Will Levis' ability to scramble and keep plays alive, makes it even more hard. They have, really good backs who can, hit the home run hits and, just make you pay if you catch a gap. And so this is going to be a very big game on being disciplined, a gap sound and just, doing a job.
And love the 7:30 p.m. start for a Monday night game. It means it'll be done in time for us to come on the 11 o'clock news, which he's the producer of on CBS 12 News, and I can give you an instant update from Hard Rock Stadium. And hopefully I'll be that excited.
That's right. Hopefully I'll be that excited because the Dolphins will pull off a much-needed win, and a win that is not really that far out of reach. We mentioned 0-3, but, they should be able to get it done.
Listen. They've got the playmakers. We didn't even talk about yet, Mike McDaniel. A lot of people love this guy. He's a happy-go-lucky dude. But this week on social media and stuff, and just hearing from the fans, there has never been more sort of coming out of the woodwork anger towards him, for lack of a better word, than I've experienced this week, just questioning his play calling, whether he was too lax on the players in training camp, giving them one day on, one day off, calling it the players team. It's not my team, it's the players team. If they had been 3-0 right now, everyone would be saying, this is the formula. But now, of course, the role is reversed, and they're starting to wonder if this fun Dolphins team is really sustainable when the losses are piling up here.
Listen, me personally, I'll give him a break because he prepared all offseason, all training camp, all preseason to have Tua as his quarterback.
Yeah.
He gets hurt in week 2. It's sudden. It's shocking. And now it's not only that.
How do you, the guy's preparing for 3 different quarterbacks.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard enough to get a playbook ready for one game.
Yeah, the adjustment's not only on that quarterback who's coming in to fill for Tua, it's on Mike McDaniel as well to readjust the entire offense.
Yeah, and then you could say team construction, and then it's the GM's fault. But let's forget about the blame game here. Let's just win some games.
Now, if this continues while Tua is still out, that's a different story.
Well, Tua is seeing, by the way, more neurologists this week. We've already mentioned he could be back when? October 27th versus the Cards. And Teron Armstead and Kendall Fuller are also on concussion protocol, so we'll keep an eye on that. But if they can get through this soft part of the schedule, quote unquote, and he's back for the Cardinals, this season can fully be turned around. You got a prediction for Monday night?
I'm kind of with Jill. She said low scoring, 21-20 Titans. I honestly think it'll be 17-14 Dolphins. That's how low scoring I think it's going to be.
I'm going to say 100-0 Dolphins.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
my prediction. That's my 100-0. It's going to happen. No, let's think here. I haven't even given this any thought. I think Snoop Huntley is going to come in. We'll see his mobility that David Fronis was talking about. It's not going to be perfect, but I think the Dolphins could win this game 24-21.
Okay.
24-21. Another Jason Sanders.
It's going to be a game winner.
Field goal. Yeah, game winner.
Wow.
Yeah, just before OT. That's what's going to happen.
Wow.
Yep. I can't wait to show this.
And be right.
After the fact.
After the fact, of course. Well, we want to thank you guys for tuning in to episode 3 of the Best Florida Sports Podcast.
I'm glad you're keeping count. Keep counting. I'm going to ask you every week.
We are at 3 right now.
Okay.
We're at 3.
And your beard grew back, so you got to do some trimming next week,
yes,
right?
Yes, I got to lose another 8% of it.
Manscaping.
Yeah. So, episode 4 will be next week. You guys can tune in wherever you listen to your podcast, or we are on YouTube. Thank you guys so much.
Go Dolphins. Fins up!
Best Florida Sports Podcast drops every Thursday morning. Listen on your favorite platform or watch on YouTube.